Well, good morning, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. It's Tuesday, so I thought I'd do a tag for Tag Tuesday. And today I'm going to get on board with what a lot of booktubers have been doing. Jim's Books, Reading, and Stuff. He's been putting together original tags left and right. It's like almost one a week. And he's been doing the alphabet tags. And so I have not done these yet. And so I thought I'd jump on board. And this week I am going to do the A tag. So this tag has 8 different questions. And I'm not going to tag anybody in particular. I'm going to leave it as an open tag to anybody who hasn't done it. These have been pretty fun, very creative by Jim. And thank you, Jim, for putting this together. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first question in the A tag is, A is for America. What do you consider the great American novel? And I think, for me, you could throw a lot of different novels into this. I know Jim mentioned, Moby Dick and Mark Twain's Tom Sawyer series, and there's a whole bunch of books you could put for this. And one of them that he did mention that I think should be considered for the great American novel is Uncle Tom's Cabin. To me, this novel is the great American novel just simply because it helped to bring to an end one of the worst, if not the worst, one of the worst issues in American history. And the history teacher in me, of course, is talking about slavery, the issue of slavery during the mid-1800s. And this novel helped bring to many, many Northerners the realities of slavery in fictional form, of course. But this became a best-selling novel, and it just spurred on the Civil War, which of course helped to bring to an end the issue of slavery. So to me, the great American novel is Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. Number 2 is for A is for arc. Which character in literature has the most interesting character arc? Right now I am reading Kristen Hanna's The Great Alone, which is a wonderful novel about a family who moves to Alaska and experiences the highs and lows of Alaska. And the main character in this book is Lenny, and she her arc is definitely interesting because she is a young girl. Starts off the book, I think she was 13, 14, right in there, and so she's still got some of her innocence. And I'm a middle school teacher, so that's a middle school age right there. And middle school kids still have some of their innocence. But as she moves to Alaska and she begins to see the worst things in her father, and some abusive situations and drinking and all of that. We see this arc in her character where she goes from, that innocence to just what is reality. And we see this love for her father at the beginning of the book and how she feels sorry for him and all this. And as the book progresses, it goes from love to hate. And it's sad, but she gets her eyes opened and innocence is taken away from her. That innocent love that we have for our parents, and she gets this feeling of hate. And it's just an interesting character arc that we are seeing with her character. Question number 3. A is for Australia. What was the last book you read by an Australian author? And I got to be honest, I don't know a lot of like where authors are from, and so I had to look up Australian authors, and I only recognized one name on the list, and when I looked up Australian, with books with an Australian author, I only recognized 2 books. And so I am sad to say that this list is not very long. The Book Thief is the one that I am going to put on for the last book you read by an Australian author. The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. And it's been a while since I've read that. It's a World War II book and middle school age, and that would be the reason I read it, is my middle school kids were reading that. So question number 4, A is for Austen. What do you plan to read for Jane Austen July? I have, to my knowledge, never read a Jane Austen book, and my daughter had read some for her English class and enjoyed them, and so I thought I might try this, and this is not set in stone by any means, but in my house, all the ladies like Pride and Prejudice, the movies, several different versions of Pride and Prejudice, but I thought maybe I'd give Pride and Prejudice a try, the book. Again, not set in stone, I'm not going to guarantee that, but that might be what I try for Jane Austen July. So, number 5, A is for automobile. What is your favorite literary automobile? This one was kind of a funny one for me because I know growing up, when I first started getting my own vehicles, I never bought anything new. I'm a bit of a cheapskate, for one. And number 2, I just like older stuff. And one of my first vehicles was a 65 Mustang. I bought that off of a car lot. It was a used car lot, and got it for a really good price. It was a little bit about timing, being there at the right place at the right time. But so it was a nice car, obviously a classic. However, it would still go probably into the beater category. And my brother always jokingly said, if I ever made it as a Major League Baseball player, they'd always know when I pulled into the parking lot. And of course, we said this in the setting of, we were sitting at it was a Chiefs game, actually, and we were sitting out in the parking lot barbecuing, and we started to see the players pull up, and he laughingly said, if I ever made it into the major leagues for baseball, they would always know when I pulled up, because everybody would be pulling up in these black SUVs and these, the Porsche and, all these fancy vehicles, and here I'd come in my beat-up 65 Mustang with the needing a new muffler and all that kind of stuff, and we always laughed about that. So I have a soft spot in my heart for old beater cars. And so for this, long story short, for this little prompt, what is your favorite literary automobile? In that same book, The Great Alone, they drive a VW bus, and for whatever reason, I have always wanted to own one. I don't know why. I just think they're cool. And so that in that book, that's probably my favorite one. And I also like to read about J.W. Jackson's old beater vehicle, and I can't think of what it was, what the vehicle actually was. It was an old beat up. It wasn't a Bronco or a Blazer, but it was that type of vehicle. And J.W. Jackson's the main character in the Martha's Vineyard mystery series, and so I always liked that vehicle for whatever reason, because I like old beater cars. So those are my favorites. Anyway, number 6, A is for anonymous. What is your favorite book or poem published anonymously? I looked up a list of books that were published anonymously, and one of them that came up on the list was Common Sense by Thomas Paine, originally published anonymously. And what a wonderful piece of literature. Obviously a piece of propaganda, but we sometimes call Thomas Paine, he's considered one of those founding fathers for the United States, and he's also put onto that list of, father of the revolution because of his propaganda work. And for me, that book, Common Sense, was a masterpiece in turning American minds towards independence. And so I'm going to put that one on the list. Number 7, A is for autobiography. What's the last autobiography you read? For me, this would be The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, by Frederick Douglass, obviously. I read this every year with my students in class, and so that was a couple months ago. That was the last book that or autobiography that I read. Very good book about Frederick Douglass's time in slavery and how he ran away to freedom. It's not a really big book. It's like 120 pages or so, depending on what copy you have. But it's around 120 pages, and just a wonderful piece of literature, especially considering, Frederick Douglass didn't have formal schooling, in he didn't have formal schooling being a slave, and so for him to be able to put that together was pretty amazing. And the last question on this tag, number 8, is A is for audiobooks. Do you consider listening to an audiobook as reading? For me, this is a yes and a no, and I'll have to explain it. I do not consider, if you're driving in a car, listening to an audiobook, I don't consider that reading, because reading is with the eyes. Although listening can play a part in it, reading is, to me, reading is with your eyes. And so if you are listening to it in the car or something like that without actually reading the text in front of you, to me, that is not reading. It's enjoying a good story, but it is not reading. Because if that was the case, anything you heard on the radio would be reading, And so for me, that is not reading. But how let me give you the second side of this. I do have students at school who struggle with reading, and when they are reading their books for English, some of them have audio books that go along with it. And so as they're listening to it with their headphones, they are reading along with the text, and I do consider that reading. So it's a yes and a no for this question. So anyway, those are my answers for the A tag. I'll put a link to Jim's video for this, his original video, and I saw all kinds of people out there. I'm not going to put a link for everybody. I saw there was a bunch of people doing this tag, but Jim's books, reading, and stuff. Go check him out. He's very creative. Got a good channel here on BookTube. And thank you for watching my version of the A tag. And till next time, BookTube, happy reading.